So my next question is, beyond just the logo, what is a brand?
Yeah, and that's the talk that we were at together.
Yep.
That was my focal point, and it's something that has evolved as I've become older and more experienced. Is there is a misconception by a lot of people of what a brand is, and so I always love to throw out the stat of if you asked 100 owners or fans or players or whomever what makes up a brand, logo is the first thing for 92% of them. They're going to say logo, and it makes total sense. Logo, color, name, because it's on the ticket, it's on the signage, it's on the shirt, it's on the hat, it's everywhere. But there's so many parts to a brand that we never think about. The players themselves are part of the brand. You look at what Inter Miami was, they had one spokesman in the form of a
Hmm.
player in Messi, and now they're the number one followed sports team in North America. Like it doesn't take much for the brand to get skewed or fall to the wayside because of one small mistake. And you've seen it throughout history of not even in sports but in companies in general about one piece that didn't quite go right, that they posted something on social media that they shouldn't have, that they let go of a spokesman because of actions detrimental to the brand. And so even to the point of an example that I always share of, I can throw out a white piece of cloth with navy pinstripes and everybody knows it's the Yankees, and I didn't have to say anything about what sport we were talking about, whether we were even talking about sports at all. It's kind of within our culture to say if I see white and navy pinstripes, I know it's the Yankees. So I think a lot of the times when I work with clients now, it's not so much from the get-go thinking about, hey, what is this logo going to look like? But it's also thinking about the full lifespan. How are you releasing this brand? What does the merchandise look like? Who do you have on your staff that will work for bilingual or different demographics in your community? Like, there's just a lot of moving pieces that the most successful brands are the ones that go beyond the logo, that they start really redefining what industry they're in. And Savannah bananas are a great example. There are people that love the bananas that do not own a hat, that's maybe never gone to a game. And there's also people that absolutely hate that the bananas are ruining baseball tradition, and
Hmm.
yet they've never gone to a game. They don't own a hat. So it definitely goes much, much further than a jersey, a logo, or even colors.
So when you start talking to teams about rebranding, and this is a great example, you brought up Savannah Bananas, episode 40. I'll put a link in the show notes. I actually interviewed Jared Orton, who's the president, and they had just launched the firefighters, and they
Yep.
came up with that. How many people in their lifetime, or any, even to pick a room with 100 people in it, how many people you'd say, hey, what do you think about the firefighters? Zero would say, oh, that's a terrible name, right? So they were very safe in their selection of choosing an alternate identity. But as you start working with teams, what are some things that you ask them? What are some things you dig in as they're like, hey, I'm thinking about launching an alternate identity? What do you ask them to kind of get the ball rolling on it?
The first thing I ask is just about their community and their fans and their city and their ballpark or arena or wherever they're playing at, because I'll do research and I'll dig deep into what we're working on. But at the end of the day, if the people that are on the ground 365 aren't quite sure what these answers are, then we have a much, much bigger issue. So it's always about educating yourself and making sure that you push the right buttons at the right time. And I worked on the Copa program, which is a huge Spanish initiative at minor league baseball. And there's a team that we won't name that was so gung ho of saying, oh, it's going to be a Hispanic program. We're going to be red and green, and yet their market was something like 78% Dominican and Puerto Rican. So if they would
Hmm.
have presented the Mexican colors to a demographic that is overwhelmingly not Mexican, it shows that they didn't quite know what they were getting into. And so that's just a very, very striking example. It's a lot less politically and motivated beyond that, but uh, it's just about first laying the land of what it wants to be. And I think I've also grown it as a designer that at the beginning it was always a matter of how many small details you could put in a logo. And now I kind of laugh at that when you have somebody that redesigns the Carolina Panthers and they go, well, I put South Carolina in the ear and this negative space and all that. I think at the end of the day, that doesn't quite matter. I think
Hmm.
that's what secondary logos are for. That's what tertiary logos are for. It's for mottos and promotions and how you market it. And so a lot of the questions just deal with, at the end of the day, who do you want to be? You know, how much fun do you want to be? What parts of this brand are serious? Because especially if you're working with baseball, you're going to have traditionalists that love that like letter cap. And so I think it's just finding that delicate balance that when we bring everything together and we sketch and we vector it out and we see the embroideries, that every single person in that room feels pride and honor working for it and are really, really excited to go out and sell and tell the story.
So let's go through this exercise here. Let's pretend you and I work together. We came up with a rebrand and we've got it. We've got a good logo. We feel very excited about it. It's going to be an alternate identity. What do you have a checklist? Once you got the logo together, do you have a checklist of, hey, here's how we're going to launch this puppy?
Yeah, in a very, very small nutshell, it's kind of like a three-piece puzzle. The first piece is find a kind of the influencers and the insiders that you want to share it with.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of value by going into your neighborhood or your city and saying, hey, we're going to do this. Do you want to see it first? Because every single time people will say yes. And you don't have to share a copy with it. You don't have to get into
Mhm.
NDA weeds. But if you're doing a food identity, how can you get with local folks that might be producing that specialty food item for the city and get their feedback? If you're working with a black initiative, going into that area and saying, hey, this brand is a specialty brand for you guys. We want to make sure that you're involved. And so I think that's huge, is finding the stakeholders outside of your front office that would be not only excited, but they're going to be the ones that will end up selling your brand better than you ever could. Because
Yep.
if they're on board and they're excited about it, their friends and their family will hear about it and it will grow and grow and grow. The second is, all right, we have all this stuff and it looks good. Do we have merch? It
Mhm.
kills me when there is a release and all eyes are on you and there's no link to a store, there's nothing available, or you go there and there's one single hat and one single shirt. You will never make as much money in a single day as you do that day that it's announced. You're going to make a huge amount of money on opening day. Like
Mhm.
that's going to be a really, really great spot. But that's for you and your region.
Mhm.
There isn't somebody in California that sees something in Florida and is going to show up to a game in order to get it. They're going to see it when it's announced and there's talk about it and there's publicity. So the second part is, do you have merch in a way of taking this brand and giving it to as many people as possible? And then three is really just coming back to what we just discussed, is internal knowledge. Why are you going to market it the way you're going to market it? What is the story? How do you make it more entertaining than just, hey, we thought this would be really fun? And so when you get buy-in internally, that starts to show. It starts bringing the energy around. So if you can get that specific demographic for a specialty brand that's really excited about it, you have the merch that's ready, and everybody inside your kind of front office is excited and motivated by it, it can only be successful. I think it's almost impossible with those three things that you will have a flop.